Iran and Israel and the United States. So we are currently into week 2 of that incident. I mean, media across the world, have refrained from calling it a war, but we all know what is it, and it's affecting us. Countries like Sierra Leone who rely on crude oil, or refined oil from the Middle East. And of course, before now, we know we've had an increment of fuel. So, that's what we keep saying, that our government should do more. If fuel prices across the world, go down, our government should ensure that it is reflective here on the citizen. So I think about, 2 months ago or so, we had Edmond Abu, who was talking on the pump price of fuel, that it went down in the world market, and as a result, we were supposed to be buying fuel at least 20 leones a litre. There were hue and cry around that, but it only came down to 25 leones because, the oil market in Sierra Leone and those who are responsible for fuel and all that, etc., only wanted to make profit. And of course, largely so, profit was made and is being made. So, again, it was, unannounced, raised up, I think, to 28 leones or so, around thereabout, and then now we have 32. Whenever there's a little issue on increment, there's an automatic increment. But when fuel pump prices or crude oil prices around the world, go down, there is always that issue that, our fuel dealers in Sierra Leone wouldn't want to reduce the price. I know we're living in a free market. I know, there's a whole lot around this fuel issue, etc. But if we're making profit at the expense of, the lives of ordinary Sierra Leonean, then it's a concern. It's a concern. So, as you know, the prices of transportation are up the roof. Silent Radio, they pay 7 leones. Now I think it's 10 leones. So Side Radio, they pay 10. It's now 15. So they pay 15. It's now 20. And then, the keke and the bike now halfway safe they want it, because we all know what people do whenever we have issues like this. People capitalize on that. We'll talk to Wataya. Well, on the electricity end, some areas are getting electricity, some are struggling. We're still calling on EDSA, to do the needful. People are paying, the high tariff already required from us for electricity, and distribute the electricity well. I know we have issues with generation of electricity. I know also we have an issue with distribution. EDSA will come and say, there are houses that are not paying. There is this light theft going around, people tampering with meters, illegal connection, especially up, the hard-to-reach areas within the capital, the hills, where EDSA do not have enough personnel to man, to ensure compliance and so on and so forth. But the areas where compliance, can be done, you guys should ensure that people enjoy, anytime when they say holiday, it's like now that 10-day blackout day. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. So we're calling on EDSA to do, their bits. Also, we're calling on, the Gomo Valley Water Company, Salwako, and all those responsible, for water. We want water. We have water in abundance. And even when it's dry season, water day in the country. Why is it that distribution becomes a problem? Why is it that maintaining the pipeline becomes a problem? I know we've run the Goma Valley Water Pipeline for over 60 years now or so, but we should start thinking around ensuring new ways for let water reach the ordinary citizen there. And I want to say thanks to the Sierra Leone Police, and I think in conjunction with the SLRSA, a notice was out over a week ago or so on compliance when it comes to, the use of crash helmet for bike riders. I think last week was the week of grace to ensure compliance, whether you are a rider or you are a pylon, you should have your crash helmet with you, you know. And the audio was around, which followed the notice from the Sierra Leone police. I think the media one of the Sierra Leone police, Mr. Kamara, as I always call him, you know, made that audio pleading to riders, drivers, you know, ordinary citizens to ensure that they comply with safety issues. And I think for vehicles, I'm sorry, for vehicles, you should use your seat belt, both the driver and the person in the front seat, passenger seat of the vehicle. Every vehicle, it doesn't matter whether in a poda, whether in a taxi, whether in an honorable motor car, whether in a government motor car, whether in an NGO, that should be the norm, you know. Ensure that you use your seat belt. And for the inside and where we sabi usai motor car then can take 2 people before, no more. Ensure that you take 1 person, you cross your seat belt, you know, be safe at all times and always. And for the bike riders, the crash helmet for the rider and also the passenger. Riders are being warned and also encouraged to ensure that they have 2 helmets. Now, there's an issue around this. I remember the last time, you know, a compliance issue of sort was brought. People begin complain, say they don't want to wear helmets where other people and don't put in aid, or the helmets then they smell. You know, Saloma will get problem. You know prioritize your safety. You say you know one puts helmet where all man don't put in aid. Well, it's now time. If you know, say you the commute for go work or for go school, always with bike, get you helmet. You yourself as a passenger, buy you personal helmet, because this law we don't cannot for only riders. If you default as a passenger, you pay the fine. Not to the Okada rider they pay. If the Okada rider get helmet, you not get, you pay the fine. You as the pylon or the passenger, you know, you pay the fine. So if you get issue with not wanting to wear the crash helmet where the Okada man they give you, buy you your own. I think helmets are cheap. Well, I would love to say so. I don't know if they're around 300,000 to 500,000, as the case may be. So if you before then they owe you every day, they pay fine. I think the fine is set around not less than, I know, 100 or 150 loans. So before they pay that fine, they double or every day whenever they catch you, buy you personal helmet. All on your hand. Where you reach na your office or na your school, put on a corner. Where you ready for move, you all am. Where you take bike, you put on your head. But also the bike riders should ensure that they have 2 helmets, one for the rider and one for the passenger. And if you know, say, you know, one buy helmet, don't you they be reluctant for put, mostly women, whenever they don't wear their wig and their weave on, they don't want to put helmets now. This is for your safety. If anything happen, you know, you for them, save you aid force. You know, this is the most delicate part of the human body. Everything where we do as Motama will function. Now from the brain, they come off from the head. So if you get accident, you able to protect your head, you are well off. You know, people have lived, you know, with cut foot or broke foot because of accident. But where the head broke, where the neck broke, you are gone. Patch no depend. You know, where you brain and bog, you lost your memory, you are gone as a motorman. Patch no depend. So ensure your safety. If you know want to use that helmet, they get you pocket hand. You know, as I can always tell people, get you pocket hand, wrap on your head, you wear the helmet. And see, you don't problem at that. You know, one helmet we all man don't put in their head. Get an handkerchief, you can buy them for as low as 10 leons or 5 leons or 15 leons. Put on your head, you put the helmet. Because if your excuse is that the helmet, they smell, you know, and you know one do that, so get that, or get a small 50 leon or 1 leon or 5 leon plastic, put on a head, because this rule is going to be mainly for the safety and lives of the ordinary Sierra Leonean. So ensure with compliance, you know. And last week was the week of grace, wherein they would warn, not do again, and also for keke riders, no more passenger in the front seat. I mean, I want possibly been on there against Dandy for a very long time. We've seen a situation where in them bike man they now where they na keke those the one with the thief and the jog phone. Say to the point we lost a prominent journalist a year ago or so. Then jogging bag, then pull on for don't go on in head, and he die. So no more passenger on the front seat. Then keke rider there. You go don't take 3 beer and you still want take before you say push. Can't catch Sidonium. No more of that. So we really want to say thanks and appreciation to the Sierra Leone police, the SLRSA, for ensuring compliance. There's small thing there. Makes a difference a lot. Some man go see and say, now they lost that one seat before. No. Compliance comes first. If accidents they happen at staff fly, you already get one passenger before. How you control that keke day? Even for you, SSF. So we want to ensure compliance. The bike man, we don't take you. He mistakes skate or photo with you. You want to protect your head. You within a front seat, a staff will have a mistake jam something. The seat belt, they help protect you. Because most of them vehicles, they cannot even get this air balloon. They don't. So we want to ensure that, citizens are safe, comply with the rules of the police. Fine, you get you small money, where you come out, you go pay fine because you don't want to wear a helmet. You can use your pocket and put on your head wear the helmet. If you don't want to wear a helmet, well, man, they wear according to you. Me don't know what's in the reason and this corona can know wear on a week there. Even me, working on comb me here, I knock your leg off. But I work out to me comb now. And where I wear my helmet to a pull arm, I come here fine and go about me normal business. But anyway, those are the updates so far. Ensure you comply with the rules, because starting this Monday, when it's today, it's full compliance from the Sierra Leone Police and personnel representing the SLRSA, Sierra Leone Road Safety Authority. But of course, today is the 9th day in the month of March 2026. I'd like to say good morning to our viewers from Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, Gambia, Senegal, Guinea, UK, US, and of course in Sierra Leone and the rest of the globe. This is how we welcome you to this Monday's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone for the week on AYV TV and also on Radio FM 101.7 on DSTV channel 399. My name is Bokari Matia. And as always, stay with us throughout this show as we bring you interviews, sport, entertainment, and many more in this 2-hour conversation of information, learning here on AYV TV and radio. We are broadcasting live from the top of Tower Hill in the beautiful heart of the beautiful city of Freetown. And we encourage you to send your feedback, send your input through to our AYV News Facebook page and be part of the conversation. But first, let's take a quick word from our sponsor, Wakeup Commercial Bank and other advertisers. And then when we come back, we get right into the show.
In the heart of Sierra Leone's dynamic rhythm, Wakeup Commercial Bank is your beat to a brighter financial future. We're not just a bank, but we're your financial partner committed to your success. We've got the financial tools you need to rise higher. Our team is here to serve you with speed and a smile because your time matters to us. So, are you ready to unlock financial prosperity? Highlighting key banking services such as Keke loans, Combra account, fixed deposits, SME loans, internet and corporate banking, from savings that grow your dreams to loans that fuel your ambitions. Demonstrating fast and friendly customer service. Showcasing cutting-edge banking technology and ATMs. Access your money anytime, anywhere with our state-of-the-art technology and a network of ATMs. Our Wakeup SimCopper app puts banking in your hands, where you can pay for EDSA, AfriMoney, Orange Money, and pay bills including school fees and make transfers to other bank accounts. Remember, you can also experience Wakeup e-banking today. Then join us now. Visit any of our branches or explore our website. Wakeup Commercial Bank, your bank of choice.
Sally, car, go see some business partners.
You didn't give me my money, Michael. Can if I kiss I give me this car people in not to in Andy. Michael, today you dey pay me my money. I don't send it for let you help me send money in Ghana. 2 weeks now, you not send me money and 10 you not give me back my money. Today, you dey give me my money.
You know ever sabi goodness na life. I dey send back your money, but trust me, today na the very last day I dey ever send money for now.
I don't need the help because I don't know so with Afri money. I dey able to send money. Now Boku Africa countries them.
With Afri money, we'll be able to send money to over 10 African countries, whether it's Ghana, Gambia, Liberia, or Kenya. If me party we know this, we know for the party glamour right now.
Okay, una go regret. I mean, now me not una go regret.
The best part right now, Michael, with Afri money, you dey able to send money even if you not use app, even if you know the online directly. All you need for do, you just a dial *161#. Pam, your money don't go. So I don't need the help again. Thief man.
Thank you.
Send money to over 10 African countries instantly with Afri Money. No stress, no excuses. Just dial *161*1*6# now. Afri Money, quick and easy.
Good to see your face again. It's been a very crazy day. The joyous feeling in the air when rain falls on a sunny day. Happy, yeah. Let the stars, let the roll.
Enjoy life's little pleasures with Maltina. Maltina, share happiness.
This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television and radio in Freetown. Now, coming up in the program this morning, exclusively we shall be discussing the importance of the International Women's Day on the theme Rights, Justice, Action for all women and girls, focusing on strengthening access to justice and disseminating structural barriers like discriminatory laws and practices, amongst other things. And also, feminist and Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chernoba, shall be speaking on the importance of the International Women's Day and the increment in the fuel pump price from 28.50 to 32 leones. As always, keep sending your comments to our Facebook page, AYV News, and be part of the conversation this morning. And also listen to us on Radio on FM 101.7. Now, in our first segment, yesterday, the 8th of March, Sierra Leone joined the rest of the world to commemorate the International Women's Day. Theme, Rights, Justice, Action for all women and girls, which focuses on strengthening access to justice and dismantling structural barriers like discriminatory laws and practices, and also underscoring the principle that meaningful progress on gender equality requires deliberate contributions from governments, institutions, and individuals. With the saying gone, when we invest in women's safety, rights, and leadership, we strengthen societies as a whole. So this morning, to discuss this day, yesterday that we celebrated, barriers amongst other things, we have in our studios Valnora Edwin, a good governance campaigner, And also, we have with us Mariam Navo, founder, Every Woman Sierra Leone, and Director of National Anti-Corruption Strategy Secretariat at the Anti-Corruption Commission. Good morning and welcome to AYV this morning.
Good morning. A pleasure being here.
How is the holiday still going?
Well, I had to wake up early this morning, so...
Madam Valnora, you know, we celebrate Women's Day every year, the 8th of March. What are we celebrating?
Good morning, listeners, and I would say happy International Women's Month to all brave, strong women in Sierra Leone from all sectors. And I would say as a woman, I celebrate myself every day. I know the UN has identified the 8th of March as a special day to acknowledge or for countries to commemorate. And I think it's important. The reason being, it helps states as well as communities, even as individuals, for us to remind ourselves of the progress we've made, of the challenges that continue, and what states need to do, communities need to do to ensure that the rights of women are protected, they're recognized. And, you know, as the month started and as we see the global trends, I sit and think of women in places like Palestine, in Sudan, in Ukraine, even in Russia, in Iran, in Central African Republic, in Democratic Republic of Congo, in northern Nigeria, because these women do not have the opportunity and the space we have to leave our homes, we move around. These women are not sure whether they will even live to see the next hour. So those are gains that we have made that at least, despite some challenges, we're at peace. And as women, we can do our normal thing, our economic and social activities. So I think it's important that we recognize the day, in as much as I think every woman needs to celebrate herself on a daily basis, because regardless of the challenges we face, we're able to remain strong, we're able to do those things that we're supposed to do to take care of our families and contribute to national development.
So this year's theme is rights, justice, action. Which of these three areas, you know, do you think Sierra Leone is weakest right now at the moment?
I think action. Because there are challenges with action, then there will be challenges with women getting justice and the rights of women being protected. To be fair, over the years, if you're looking at states' responsibility, the states, various governments have progressively enacted legislations, brought around policies on health, on education, addressing sexual offenses, inheritance, access to land, to address the social and economic and even political and civil rights of women. Progressively, those laws and policies are in place. What has remained a challenge is in terms of implementation. And that's where the issues of action comes in. But laws are developed and implementation will be effective, in my view, based on the culture, the norms, and the value of that society. So in as much as we have all these, what we call progressive laws, there's been significant challenges with implementation as a result of our culture, our mindset, our socialization. So if you say how are matters handled in court, when there are sexual offenses matters or any other matters related to women, you have to look at who are these people who have to preside over these matters. So in as much as there are legislations, how are they interpreted? They interpret them based on their own values, based on what their own understanding. And if you have people, both male and female, who sit and who are supposed to ensure that justice is administered to women, but they have a certain socialization or orientation, it's difficult for us to move beyond just legislation. So you read the legislations, they're good, some can be improved, but implementation becomes a challenge because of our socialization. We still live in a society where, even for both male and female, we do not believe that women should occupy certain positions. And when I say that, I leave out the political aspect a bit, because we put a lot of emphasis there. And I think leadership has to be groomed, it has to be nurtured. And it starts from even the home. How do we bring up our kids when we have boys and girls? You have some cultures where if they don't have enough resources, boys are sent to school and girls are not sent to school. We still have cultures in Sierra Leone where maybe when the girl is 15 or 16, she's married off. So the practice is still a problem. We still have polygamous homes where, you know, there's a lot of discrimination among the wives themselves and the children. So all of that affects the overall output or recognition of the contribution of women. Women are married off, so you're married off at 15, 16, you start having kids, and you don't have a say in terms of, can we space these kids? Can we just have 3 because of a financial status? You don't even have a say in that. And who are the people who push that immediately you get married, you should have children, you should have 6, you should have 10? It's the culture, and most times the custodian of those cultures are even women. The mothers-in-law, the women in the secret societies, the traditional women. You should start having children. You should have as many children as the man thinks you should have. So despite all these laws, it's very difficult to break that barrier, which is why the action has become problematic. And over time, it has to take a lot to change our mindset, to ensure that we move away from those negative aspects of our culture and the sort of values that we've been carrying along over time, and have a bit more of an open mind and a more progressive mind to understand that women are there as the other half of society. They have various ways in which they are contributing, and you have to give them that space from childhood. The way you bring up the boys, you don't discriminate. No, you go waspan. The boboling, what do you boy picking the go waspan for? What do you they go do in a kitchen? How you want on woman? Forgetting that the greatest chefs in the world are men. The greatest cooks, when you go to most of these high-end hotels or restaurants, they are not women, they are men. What do you do yonder? Now woman walk down there, not a man walk. You go sit down. Let the girl picking in a kitchen. So the moment we start doing that, that's why you have a lot of women who have very low self-esteem. There are a lot of women who, despite their educational levels or exposure, if they're in a room with men, they feel intimidated. Because since childhood, they've been nurtured that where there is a man, even if he's younger than you, even if he's not as educated as you or as exposed as you should be silent and allow that man to dominate. So until we are able to break that barrier, starting with our children, our grandchildren, how do we nurture them to understand that, respect each other, work together? It's going to be a long journey, but I do believe we'll get there.
Right. Now, Mariama, we celebrate Women's Day every year, you know, but there's this fear, you know, for it not to be only symbolic, wherein you'd have, you know, celebrations, you'd have seminars, you know, workshop every year. From your perspective, you know, when you look at, you know, the Sierra Leonean story, what real progress do you think we've made as a country, you know, when it comes to women's rights?
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day to every Sierra Leonean woman, and indeed women across the world. We're doing really well. Pat yourself on the back. You're trying. You exhibited strength, and you deserve to be celebrated. So I was listening when Valnora was speaking about the policies and the laws that we have in Sierra Leone. The truth is, we do have all of these strong policies, we have sober laws, and we only have some challenges with implementation. And when I say implementation, it relates to every woman across this country, not just women in Freetown or in the city, rural communities where every woman in Sierra Leone, we work and we see firsthand the practicality of the challenges that Sierra Leonean women face. So yes, we have all of these beautiful policies, but we now have to move away from just having policies to actually ensuring that even at in rural communities, at regional level, across the board, all of these policies are implemented. Perhaps we need to get enforcement agents on some kind of robust sensitization, because they know we have the policies, but when it comes to implementation, there are some challenges and gaps, and that is where we come in. We support deprived, vulnerable women in all of those rural communities to have access to justice. We have a fantastic and amazing justice system. When you look at it, you know, the front is really nice, but when you come back to the back end, you find that there are gaps. And this is where the challenges come. How do I access justice if I'm not politically connected? How do I access justice if I don't have formal education? How do I access justice if I live in the villages, in those communities where my daughter perhaps was raped and I need to pay a bribe for the police to even move this case forward? These are the practical things every woman in Sierra Leone is pushing for. We want this access of justice to move away from being a paper tiger to actually become something we enjoy, not just in Freetown or not just women who are elite. We want every woman in this country to have this access, irrespective of your connection, your social status, your educational background. We want access to justice for all women. So we're calling on lawmakers. Now let us move this beyond the paperwork. Let us now make sure in our communities, in Bombali, in Koinadugu, in Tonkolili, in Bo, in Pujel, those women who live in Monjama, villages, all of those places, they can come to the police and say, this is my challenge, and they don't even have to pay to get the service that they so deserve. This is what we are pushing for, and it's International Women's Day, and this is the best time for us to speak to lawmakers to understand that this is a problem, and we want them to help us. We need help.
Now, you come from, you know, the corruption background, and when you look at, you know, all what you've said and what's happening, we might have the beautiful laws. I mean, I think we started that wave from 2007 when we had the Three Gender Act. We're doing quite well now, you know, having, you know, these legislations passed. But at the end of the day, as you've stated, implementation is the problem. But then also, when you come down to the implementation stage, there's also the issue of corruption, as you've highlighted. Do you think, even if we get implementation right, we'll still struggle because of how endemic corruption is? You know, and most of these institutions, by the way, are headed by male figures. And access to justice, for example, or access to wealth, access to finance, you know, you have problems or barriers if there are corrupt systems around those institutions.
To be honest with you, women face challenges, practical challenges in our offices, in our everyday lives. From my anti-corruption point of view, what gives me the advantage, in fact, as founder of Every Woman, is also the fact that I have this ACC aura. Anti-Corruption Commission helps me, favors me, because when things come up, I go or I place a call, you know, we find that things are addressed speedily. And it is not everybody that is going to have access to Mariam and Avo to call them and say, I have this challenge, can you help me? Because I recall like 2 weeks ago, there was an issue in Bombali, and you know, the parents were confused as to where their case was going. They had to go through somebody to reach me, and then when they reached me, we took action immediately. We placed the call, the file was located, and the case is moving forward. How many women, how many people, all of our aunties in Petbana, our aunties in Kailaon, how many of them are going to have contact for Valnora or for a lawyer to call and make those calls to say, please help me, I don't know where my case is going. Also, there's this issue of bribery. We cannot shy away from this. You know, over the years, we find that there has been challenges with enforcement within the system. All of those people are supposed to be providing free services without prejudice. When you come, they'll tell you, Anogepen, we're not calling institutions here, say, okay, we need transport.
Yeah, I'm not getting paper.
Give me transport. You know how this is a woman whose child has been raped. And you say, can't give me transport. Let we go, when I give you transport, we want to go find this perpetrator. You understand? So all of these things are slow. We are not moving forward when it comes to the enforcement of these laws. We have beautiful laws. Sierra Leone, we are known in the sub-region for fantastic laws. In fact, for us at ACC, we have people come from other countries to study our ACC Act, to study our anti-corruption strategy, because it's so beautifully crafted. But when it comes to implementation, We're calling on the police, for example. FSU, they are the first point of call. The doctors, the jury, judiciary. Let us work together. If you are interested in, women's issues, we want to see it in practicality. We want to see, so we are saying, do not take bribes. Do not take bribes. Do not spoil all of these cases. Be on the side of people who really need you. Do not, we also find that over the years, a lot of people will come and then they will say, okay, let's go settle this at home. And then the perpetrator, if they are well-to-do, they will go and sort out the police and go back and say, okay, let's settle this matter at home. Can we just move it outside of the court system? And they will just come with huge sums of money, and you'll be there fighting for these people. Before you know it, they will say, well, we have decided to just let it be. We are leaving everything to God. And you find that when you investigate something, has happened behind the scene. Some huge cash has been, to the parents or the enforcement agents or wherever the case may be. So all of these things are things that we are not happy about. Let us be honest. We need to move on from all of these bribery, corruption, spoiling cases. Everybody, every woman in Sierra Leone deserves access to justice, free access to justice. Their dignity is dependent on access to justice. Our sanity as women depends on our access to justice. So we are calling on lawmakers, indeed the government of Sierra Leone, to support us in our cause.
Valnora, don't you think, for the past decade or so, or even two decades, as a country, we've focused more on political representation of women, rather than empowering women? Because take, for example, access to finance. You'd have beautiful laws to say, women will have access to grants. But if women do not have property to put as collateral, then the access to grants can be stifled. It's only recently we're seeing the change in the customary land law that now allows women to own land, etc., etc. If you're empowering women, but there are other laws that are limiting, what women can achieve and have, isn't that a problem?
I certainly agree with you. On the side of those of us who do advocacy, the advocacy has been holistic. Access to justice, access to finance, and this is why we've all been advocating, even the devolution of estates and all of these, that all these laws have to be enacted. Because the woman is a wholesome being. And it's not just about political representation that will solve the problems of women. Because if even you have increased number of women at the political level, they need to be there to carry the women's agenda. If they are not carrying the women's agenda when they sit in those spaces, we are still having all these issues. So on the side of advocacy, a lot has been done to have that sort of holistic picture that women need. In terms of on the side, I would say, of the government, there has been a lot more emphasis on the political, though if you look gradually over time, they've also tried to address issues of sexual violence and other forms of discrimination. But I certainly agree with you that in terms of economic empowerment of women, access to finance, access to land, we're only recently having all these legislations. We are having policies and discussions where we have another colleague, Madam Nasu, that is doing some very good, extensive, practical work around that in terms of women having access to loans, having low interest rates, and all those benefits or support that women will need to ensure that they can start up their business effectively. So one of the challenges is this emphasis on political representation. It is needed. But we also hold the view that though we need women at the political level in terms of discussing legislations, members of parliament, ministers of government, but you also need these women who would be MPs to also have background in some of these technical areas. Because when you have that technical knowledge and expertise, it helps you to debate. You have to look at policies. You can have a gender lens when you're looking at various legislations. And just the interesting point, if you're talking about justice, corruption is part of it. Corruption is an issue. So if we're talking about empowerment of women, it's actually a holistic picture. And it's something we need to, in terms of the action, we need to do a lot more pushing these issues forward. Recently, the Office of the Vice President and the Ministry of Gender had a dialogue session. And they had a panel where all these issues were being discussed. How can women access loans? How women in villages? Because there are women living in villages or in non-urban areas that are doing good jobs, that want to start up good businesses. But how could they access the banks? How do they even acquire the information in terms of what the process entails? Who can accompany them to ensure that they can knock on the right doors and they will not be duped in terms of what they need to do? There was a discussion on people who already work with financial institutions. There is a proposal to have a women's bank, and there are also discussions on how the implementation of the women to be able to inherit land, to own land. We boast that most of our farmers are women, but most of the land that they use are not theirs. They toil on the land, but the land does not belong to them. And those are some of the advocacy things that have been happening over time, that women need to be able to inherit, women need to be able to own, women need to be able to own property, buy property. So you don't have to say you need to come with a man to be able to rent a house, buy a house, or do your financial transaction. So it's a whole holistic picture, and I think in recent times there has been a lot of efforts to make sure that that economic empowerment of women is given the priority that it deserves.
And also, you would agree with me that even the political rights, it's now that we are getting it right. I mean, 3 years ago, the push for 30% has been going on for a very long time.
Yeah.
But we only saw, the practicality of it in this past elections. And now, in the amendment of the current bill before Parliament, this amendment constitution, we're seeing it being legislated. Why does it have to take, so long? Even before, and this is just at the national stage, but also there are issues when it comes to, inter-party politics, wherein women are only limited to women role, mommy queen, chair lady. We haven't seen, a woman heading a political party yet. So if we're starting to take the step, not just representation in parliament, give them symbol, let them go to parliament, give them councillors position. What about the inter-party politics? Why aren't women taking the big positions?
A very good question. And those are some of the advocacy issues that we've been raising over the years. That the internal party dynamics is very problematic when it comes to giving women the authority and the space that they need. And it ties into what I said earlier regarding our socialization and our orientation. What has happened, well, it's not even unique to Sierra Leone, but what has happened over time, men should be in control. Because when you're talking about political power, it's about access to power, to finances, and to influence. And the men will not let that go easily. They think they need to be in control. And unfortunately, we don't see that sort of strong advocacy. Few women within political parties have been able, or are fighting the battle to emerge from that sort of web. But we don't see that sort of very strong advocacy from the women's movement within political parties for them to occupy more space. They seem, from where we sit, they seem to be content with the women's wing. They fight each other to become the women's leader. And you realize that even when you hear about the women's leader, you don't hear a lot about how the women's leader or the women's executive champion women's issues, champion women's agenda within political parties and outside. And we've been working with them over time. But because like I said, the socialization, where you have a lot of men, you should not push. We have had stories where there was a woman who wanted to contest, and that's a woman who's been in politics for quite some time, in one of the political parties. She wanted to contest to be the chairperson of the political party. And she said the men came around and said, there's a man who is interested, and you know that you're a woman, you know, you go for the deputy position and allow the man. So that's the orientation. So we will have these legislations, but one, the men continue to be the gatekeepers. And I think women within political parties do not really advocate as much as they should. Because what I have noticed, you even have more women than men within these political parties. The women are doing a lot of work. We have worked with them, they will tell you, oh, the women's leader is coming, or the chairperson is coming. They are the ones who organize for the meetings. They are the ones who do the cooking. They are the ones who mobilize for T-shirts. So we've been encouraging them, why don't you use all this energy, the resource that you have to mobilize, to also mobilize to say, you know, when they say the chairperson is coming, let it be a woman. Let the district head be a woman. Even when you look at the primaries of the internal party elections, most of the critical decision-making positions are still held by men. So we are still advocating, we are still encouraging the women, or encouraging women who are more vocal and stronger to join political parties to ensure, because it starts from within the political party. And it doesn't mean when you're in a political party because you want to contest as a president, a mayor, a councillor. You can be the chairperson of the political party, you can be the deputy chair, you can be the secretary general, you can be a godmother within, because there are hidden powers we don't see within these political parties. But you don't hear women's names. They are mostly men. So it's about time we take the bull by the horns. We, the women, those who are in political parties, have a stronger voice. Come together and say we need to occupy these spaces. Let's not just sit at the women's wing. Let's not just sit at the National Women's Congress, because they don't seem to yield that much authority that we felt they should as women mobilizing to seek the interests of women within their political parties.
Right. Mariama, what would be your assessment? You know, are men being sufficiently involved when it comes to gender equality conversations, or has it just, you know, the issue now has been framed, you know, as a woman-only issue? Do we have enough men that are actually fighting for women's affairs?
Before I get to that, let me just say something. Let it be known that we notice things as Sierra Leonean women. We notice things. We are sensible. We know where the gaps are. And we understand everything that is going on. And we also know that we ourselves, women, we are our own enemies. When she was talking about political representation within political parties at grassroots level, I was just listening in and thinking, if you stand up now and say, okay, I want to become this, it is the women who will crucify you first before the men. So let me speak to Sierra Leonean women. This is our time. Understand that. We need to support women who are bold enough to come up. This is our time. Without us, these men, they will not exist. You have the power, we all have the power. We just have to find a mutual, you know, meeting points where we agree together and plan. Believe me, it is the men who need us more than we need them in this country. Like she was saying, we have more women involved in politics, but very little power is given to us. Why? Because of the way we are. Because we hate each other. We bring each other down. So this is me speaking to you, every Sierra Leonean woman watching this program. Share this. We have to stand up and take our place. It is our right to be involved, not just in the kitchen. When political movements are going, like she said, we are just there cooking every time. And we they cook, and we then at the backyard, and we they buy the rum for Gim, and they know. We want female people to come, female politicians to come up. We want women, strong women to come up. And another thing I noticed, Valnora, is the fact that when these things happen, when there's need for appointment, ministerial appointments, all of these, they are not looking inwards. Most of the times, they are giving female diasporans the opportunity who do not even understand our challenges that we face, who do not even understand the problems. So you find the minister will go somewhere, she'll have to rely on a local woman Look we did. Those women who went to school in Sierra Leone, who got good quality education here, are equally capable. We cannot be confused anymore. So for all those appointments, it is not only diasporans that are capable. You have structured intellectual Sierra Leonean women, locally homegrown, that are capable of taking these positions. So take note of that. Now, as for the men, I'll say a few men have come in. They have, you know, we have what we call this demystification of all of this. The myth around advocacy for women is that they are troublemakers. Those ones, they are just troublemakers. Don't mind them. When you start advocating for women's rights, there are men who will just be turned off totally and think that they know they take training. Now us. Why do you keep classifying women who want to be involved as women when not they take training? Can we move Sierra Leone out of this kind of mindset? This is why we're having meetings like this, programs like this. Let us demystify this big elephant in the room where they make a lot of people are afraid to come up because their husbands will tell you, if I see you there, and I don't want my marriage to break, so I'm going to stay back. These are the practical things. But a good number of men are coming up. They are now saying, okay, fine, we're going to stand with you. We're going to identify with you. We're going to give you the opportunity to become what you really want to become. Those who have not seen the need to support us, this morning we are calling on you. This is a call for action, if you like. Help Sierra Leonean women who want to become, let them become. Don't stand in the way. Don't cry us down. And as for our female folk, if we don't support each other, the men will keep using us. And when it's time for all of this, see how these men are enjoying their lives. Don't you think as a woman you deserve that sort of, you know, to be there and become what you need to become? Let's work together as women.
Now, when we talk of, you know, gender issues and policies, there's always the argument that these discussions, you know, these advocacies that we are not talking about are purely being pushed by elite women, and, you know, consideration isn't really given to women in rural areas, you know, to voice out their opinion. I'd like to, you know, use recent laws, for instance. I know we had a push for criminalizing FGM for children under 18. But it went through to Parliament, and that particular clause was removed. You know, there are whole political consideration around that, you know, but we're talking about lives of young girls who would have been protected otherwise, you know, and then our members of Parliament, women included, were not able within the well of Parliament, you know, to canvass enough to have that clause remain in our Parliament. You know, when we speak of advocacy and all this, isn't it just, you know, elite women like yourselves pushing the agenda whilst women in rural areas are being left out?
I have to tell you, I'm a victim myself. I was forcefully initiated into that thing, and I will always speak against it. I am not afraid of speaking against it. I have been pushing, we have been pushing, and when I say we, every woman's really, we have been pushing to let girls reach the age of consent, and if they willingly want to become member of that society, they can become members. And you don't force your kids, toddlers. A couple of years ago, we had what happened. We lost kids because, you know, the tender age they are taking into that society. So I will always speak against that act. I will say, let them reach the age of consent. And if they want to become, let them become. But as far as the issue with rural women being involved, every woman in Sierra Leone, we are mostly active in rural communities. Last year, for International Women's Day, we held meetings for Soways. And we were looking at the possibility of providing alternative livelihood. When these things have some you know, bearing on the livelihood of these women. This is where we understand they pay something like 500 leones per child. So we engaged them and we said, okay, fine, this is what you get per child. that's about $20 or less, a little less than $20. This is what you get per child. So it's a livelihood issue, it's a political issue. Politics, a lot of people don't want to talk about FGM because they need the votes. This is the truth. If you talk about FGM, they will not vote for you. That is what they are told.
But my concern, Mariama, is this. We have 30% women representation in parliament. Isn't that enough to have, twist these male members of parliament to say, please, look, I know there's a whole lot around this thing, but I am concerned. Even women parliamentarians, are they seeking women's affairs first or political affairs first? How did they get there? How did they get there? Politics got them there, right? And therefore, they have to maintain to be kept in there. They have to maintain their political, they have to satisfy their political godfathers. And we need the numbers. Sierra Leone is not just Freetown. And we have regional representation. We have all of these people. If you start speaking against FGM, you lose numbers. And politics is about numbers. Who is going to be the sacrificial lamb to say, I don't care what happens, we're going to enforce this law, this particular clause. We will not remove it. We will include it and we'll enforce it. The risk is high. Political risk is high in cases like this, matters like this. It has political bearing, and there's also the livelihood issue. So who is going to be that sacrificial lamb to give up their votes? As far as, women's representation in rural communities, you can imagine how many people will say, we are not voting this person or this party because they are speaking against our society or tradition. So this is me saying to politicians, can we have a meeting and meet with these SOEs? We are on the ground. We have met with them, and we know what. I am a member of that society, although I was forced, so we can walk in and talk to them and say, if this is a livelihood issue for you, can we see what alternatives we can provide you so that you can wash your hands off this? Is it possible for us to take this conversation? There is another organization, Commit and Act, that is also engaged in SOEs in the north. Now we have women, girls being initiated into the Bondo Society without the FGM part. It's a beautiful thing to see, and this is the truth. I have seen it for myself. They were kept there without any medical consequences or touching or whatever, and they were trained how to become female leaders, how to take care of your home, how to speak in public, and there was no circumcision. And they came out and everybody was happy. Can we move this conversation in that direction as a people, as a nation? Maybe it's about time. Mm-hmm. Valnora, is this an issue of, giving them the cow and holding the rope? Because if we can have women's representation, but then when we have critical issues that, will determine women's affairs, girls' affairs, and they are not being passed, do we really parade or shout about the representation when critical issues that should require the actual representation are not being, dealt with by, these institutions?
Again, a very good question. I'm enjoying this conversation. The thing is, I've noticed in Sierra Leone in particular, to even have us here as panelists, the producer will check our background. Who are these people? What's their background, their knowledge around this topic. That's how you select your panelists. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately for Sierra Leone, when it gets to politics, we don't look at the background of people, we don't look at their competency, we don't check their history, as long as maybe they give a lot of money, or their grandfather or uncle was one of the founders, or they had put in a lot of money, or these people were the ones who were mobilizing youths and doing all these things for us. We give them positions without checking their background to know, can they lead? Because we need people to lead. You are leading millions of people with different interests, so you really need to have what it takes to manage all of that, to push this country forward. And that's where the problem starts. Who are the people within the political space to lead this nation? Do they really have what it takes? It comes back to the points we've already discussed. In terms of the women's agenda, it has to start from within the political parties itself. And you don't see much of that happening. The men are the gatekeepers. There's a lot of challenge because of the structural patriarchal thinking. And so you have very few women who are pushing and who are fighting, and it's a big struggle. The men are not giving the space to the women to occupy those decision-making levels, even when you have strong women who want to get there. So within the political party itself, you don't have a lot of strong women, you don't have a lot of women, and some of these women will tell you, even to be given the symbol to contest in the elections, what they have to go through, because they are men as gatekeepers. And the few women who are at the top, either they get overwhelmed by the men, or they do not really believe in the women's agenda. So another area that we seem to forget, not every woman believes in the women's agenda. Not every woman who sits at that space. We are talking about the financial access. And just recently, someone was saying to me, I went to this particular bank. They are in charge of changing these policies. And some of the leaders there are women. And yes, they can't see these things through a gender lens to say, we need to have policies, rural women who want to start small businesses, how do we give them access? So by my being a woman seated at AYV does not mean I would think I should employ 50% women or 50% men. Not all women think like that. Not that they are not aware, but they are just not a follower or a believer in the women's agenda. And therefore, when we are recruiting, voting, selecting, nominating women, we have to find women who believe in the women's agenda to push these issues forward. And it comes to mind the issue you mentioned about the law for the FGM. There are female MPs. We don't even hear them. When most of these legislations go to parliament, you don't hear the female. Not that they might not be saying certain things here, they have various stages where they have a conversation. But as women, we want to see them championing, especially issues that narrow down specifically to women. You don't see that happening. One point I wanted to also make mention of when you asked the question about the elitist and the ruler is something we have to stop doing as a nation. Every society has a cadre. The most important thing is, what is the connection? How do you connect people together? A woman in that village that we keep on referring to might not have the opportunity to sit here in this platform at AYV and have this conversation. But because I have interacted with her, Mariam has interacted with her, we can speak on her behalf. We can go to the UN, we can go to ECOWAS, we can go to AU, we can have a discussion with the president, with the leader of the female caucus. These high-level platforms, we can be their voice. It doesn't mean there is no connection. There is a connection. And for most activities, I am part of the African Women Leaders Network, and it's a network. I'm also the vice president of the 50-50 group. And we have coordinators in every district. And there are many other organizations like Mariam, and so many other organizations that we all work together. So I might not be in a particular chiefdom in, let's say, Falaba. She would be there. But there is a space we all connect. And in most conversations we have, we try to make it national, where you bring in representatives from these districts to be part of the conversation so that they can also translate to their chiefdoms, to their organizations at the community level. It is not them against us. It's not an elite versus a rural disconnect. That disconnection is not there. And every society would have elitist women. And you need elitist women. Oh, yes. And even the elitist women, we also have our own challenges. We also have our own issues to challenge and to fight for. Because most times you have a conversation, I think, and it's one of these statements to distract from the bigger picture. Oh, now they're elitist women there. Now then they fight for themselves. Of course, if I have the space and the platform, I will fight for myself. With the same breath, I'm going to fight for that woman in that village that does not have the platform, because we have interacted and we know what their needs and aspirations are.
Now, speaking on the issue of women supporting women, I find it funny that, you know, two people made statement against a political figure. The male figure was arrested. There was a whole, should I say, mini demonstration around the release of that male figure. A female figure was arrested. She's been refused bail for 3 or 4 times. It is only now we're seeing women coming on board. And the very political party which she is part of, allegedly or not, has refused to come out to speak outrightly as they did for that male figure. So we are talking of women being in spaces where they're not being valued. You know, let's say for a fact, if I am a woman and I've seen what has happened to Zainab Sharif, I might be fearful of even joining any political party, wherein if I say my mind, the party structure will not protect me. Whether she is a member or not a member, these statements were made in the course of, you know, that political settings. The male has been advocated for, he's out and about now, and the woman is still, you know, the same political pressure that was given for the male should have been given in Zainab's case. But here we are celebrating Women's Day, we are celebrating a fine holiday, and we have a woman behind bars.
So that's just a perfect example that really sums up all this conversation that we're having. And to be fair, a number of organizations, including like the 50-50 group, we've even done a press release to the effect. And even prior to the press release, we have been visiting Zainab to let her know that women's groups, we are with her in solidarity. And the issue there is, it's not about, she's a political figure, and it's not about the right or wrong of her statement. It's a solidarity. And like you're saying, if there was so much hue and cry for a male counterpart, why don't we see the same happening for the political party? And as I mentioned, whenever you have women within political parties having challenges, you never hear the women within the political party saying a thing. And I'll give a quick example. A couple of years, I think it was in 2012 or thereabouts, we were still advocating to ensure that we have increased number of women being given positions within political parties and being awarded symbols, all in this minimum 30% advocacy then. And we requested from the police, we had a conversation, and we said we were going to do a peaceful demonstration to ensure to the cotton tree, and then we'll have a ceremony. I think we started at St. John. And whilst we were there, it was just civil society women who are not contesting in elections that were there. You had a couple of us, it was Campaign for Good Governance, 50-50, Women's Forum, and the whole other. And then, even then, you had police women who joined in as well. And we got to Cotton Tree, not a single woman from any of the then, I don't know how many political parties, I cannot recall, that existed then, were a part of that peaceful demonstration. It was only when we got to the Cotton Tree that a few of them joined in. So we are on the outside. But most times when it gets to issues relating to women affected, like in the instance of Zainab Sharif, it is civil society women, advocates, whose voices you hear. You never hear the voice of women within political parties across the board. It's a woman. And I think that's why I'm saying not all women in positions of authority or influence carry the women's agenda. I was in a certain space recently where the issue of Zainab Sharif was being discussed. And you'll be surprised at the way some women reacted. And I can sense that it was from a political perspective. And they were saying, this is not something to discuss here. No, the law should follow. We know the law, we are not saying set her free. But like you're saying, if a man had done something similar, and the party raised all that hue and cry, and he's been granted bail, why can't the woman receive the same when the circumstances are almost the same? It's left to the lawyers to decide anyway. But why hasn't she been accorded the same? And then you have women who are saying, no, blah. So it's not every woman that carries the women's agenda. And I think that is very unfortunate. So one thing I say, when, again, to create some level of clarity, even for women, when we say women are not supporting women, I don't support women who do the wrong thing. I don't support women who are corrupt or who don't show proper leadership or who don't abide by the law. But what I will not do, especially if you are vying for office or you are a public figure, is to cry you down in public. You don't do that. We have these things we share where they say, fix the crown on her head. If the crown is falling down, is slanted, you don't take it off, or you start drawing everybody's attention. Look at her crown, it's falling off. You fix the crown properly for her. You get her to do the right thing. Like we're saying, we need a lot within political parties. How do you get the women to be more deliberate, more intense in terms of their advocacy? It's about supporting them. How do you ensure that the women sitting at decision-making spaces, the ministers, deputy ministers, the female parliamentarians, and women even within the private sector, like I was saying about somebody at the bank, who are sitting at decision-making levels, how do you support them? And that is what we are doing. We support them to make sure that they carry and understand the women's agenda.
Madam Mariama, there's a question here for you from Mohammed F.S. Kamara. He's saying, Madam Mariama of Every Woman, Sierra Leone, what's your position in the case of Zainab Sharif, who has been denied bail 3 times for minor offense? Is this justice system in the country, does this justice system in the country belong to the people or to those in power?
This is me and this is my truth. I believe in upholding ethics as women, and I also believe that we all have this open space that we can use, that is available to us to showcase what we have. I believe that while we are using this available space, we all have to be supportive and mindful of how we conduct and utilize this space. At the moment, I work with an institution where we are not permitted to have these sorts of conversations. Although I'm not here in my capacity as director at ACC, but I also have the responsibility to respect the ethics of that institution that I work for. So I'll just leave it at that.
As we're wrapping up, there are a few comments here I'd like to take. Mystic from Dazaki saying, as we celebrate women, we must also remember that women's rights are still a challenge for many. Most single mothers are petty traders struggling every day to provide for the well-being of their children. Sadly, many of them are now in pain and distress due to the ongoing right-of-way demolition by SLRA and the Sierra Leone police, which have destroyed their means of livelihood and left them stranded. Some have even lost their husbands and now carry the full burden of caring for their families alone. As we honor women, let us also stand for justice, support and protection for those who continue to fight for survival and dignity. And he goes further to say, as we have observed International Women's Day, we should use it to address the challenges women are faced with in society, especially single mothers who are going through challenges on the upkeep of their child and the high rate of referring to, the recent demolition exercise by, I think, the police and SLRSA, those livelihoods or those areas we knew where, petty traders were occupying, the model, those areas, women are now being removed from those places. Rightly so, we are talking about, ensuring that, the city is safe, beautifying the city, living up to standards. But they're not providing alternative means of livelihood for these women. If you say, only when they're waiting at Lumley, when accommodate now, who's you declaring as a government? And whilst we're talking about, empowering women, if the platform is not there to, make sure women are empowered, the little space that women are empowering themselves, why take it away from them? As we round off, I'd like you to comment on that. And this is about livelihood.
Livelihood, yeah. First of all, let me say, Sierra Leonean women, we need to have a meeting. We need to have a meeting, and it's an emergency. If you want to meet, I'm available. Reach out through this channel or wherever. We need to have a meeting, that's one. And again, when it comes to SLRA enforcing their right of way and all of that, I am a custodian of the law, I work in an institution where we enforce the law, I'll say, what's in the law say? What is the law saying in respect of the use of the right of way? Do we want to make these sacrifices to beautify our country, or we're just making this, we're asking them to leave? Because what we see is they'll leave today, and after 1 week or 1 month, they are back. So when we ask them to leave, are we quickly, setting up structures? Every day I drive by the wall of Parliament, I see the beautiful outside front the Parliament, and I say, this is a beautiful opportunity for us to have a garden, So I see all of these activities along that road. If we really want to beautify, let us go. When we move them, let us spring into action and do the needful, right? So removing them from these spots is not enough. But then let us also again take action to make sure that if we're taking them elsewhere, let's take them. But taking them off today, after 1 week they're back, that's the scenario. You see them off, on the way to Parliament, they remove them today, after 2 weeks they're back. What are we saying? Are we saying we are not capable of enforcing or upholding these things? It's confusion. Let us stop confusing these women. If you're removing them, remove them and then take them elsewhere, right? They also deserve to have this space and all of that. I'll say it's good for us to have a beautiful landscape. You drive and all of that. But let us see how we can provide an alternative, make alternative arrangements for them. If we really mean what we're saying, it's about beautifying and keeping the city. We don't want to see women leave that spot and after 2 weeks they come back. That's weakness, and we don't need that.
Right.
I want to say something quickly on that. And I think, firstly, let us talk to the woman the way they sell. For me, I see it as a safety issue, even for yourself. I've walked through Sani Abacha Street, and I don't see women then they use the gutter as bathroom. And I think that is so undignified. You don't see them, they get them small, the picking and they come out school. Now the gutter, and they be bathroom for them. Girl picking them as well as boy picking them. I don't think for your own safety, for hygiene, and for your dignity as a woman, Nayanda for go be bathroom. The side way I blame the government is you don't allow them in the first place. You don't allow people to build Usaina, SLRA right of way, not to all side get for be markets. Even as we push for women's livelihood, single mother, we all they go fend with livelihood, but we all have to abide as to how you they set up your office, how you they say, you know, also go make your office anyhow. So in as much as we want our women to take care of their children, to take care of themselves, but not to any side, for your safety. I always look at what is happening at Lumley. When you look, then they sell tea, then they sell front the church. Then they sell tea, them they can't write na the road. And like you're saying, it like the enforcement agency, they're not willing for do the right thing. So what is happening? The footpath don't turn markets. The post way for working at the footpath in the working at the road. The you way they drive na the road, you know get side for drive your car, and then there are so many things that happen along in between. So we really get for make sure say our women sell na the right space. Don't allow them to put these structures outside enough for day. Then the debate of pull them, not pull them, because it becomes a human rights issue. So in the first place, don't allow them to sell. The second thing the government needs to do, we have to find alternative means of livelihood. The sell don't bokutumos. Petit trading don't bokutumos. Every 2-3 person, it don't open shop, it don't get fana markets. We need to get more substantive. Maybe they have a livelihood through that, but maybe if you find another thing, which is why we say, open up the private sector. Let we get them factory then, where you they employ all the umaya. You don't need to go to school. You just need those hands-on training, which is what the country needs now. That's the way we should go. We had the solar thing, technical solar, barefoot women, exactly. These women didn't go to school. But they became technicians, they were trained, they got to India, then they traveled, then they do them. Those are the sort of skills these women need, rather than every 2-3 women in Chingom, junks, the streets, then they are very unsafe. Then I like walking around. But sometimes it becomes so difficult because you get for work on the road, car day, bike day, Okada day, then the footpath in downtown markets. So I think the police and the enforcement agency, I think you should continue what you're doing. Just make sure say you don't allow them to spring up in new places. The only other thing, you need to find alternative spaces for them. When you pull them out, draw them come up, because I look at that old railway line, Tengbe Town Junction. That's a very beautiful place. When you pull all the makeshift structures and the markets, it's such a beautiful, safe place where Pikin and Gowaka, school and Bokude. But last evening or so, I saw a whole bunch, of course, are there women. Then they are working hard, I agree. They are working hard, we need to support them, but that is not a safe space for them to be selling.
And finally, if we meet again next year to celebrate the International Women's Day, what measurable changes would you hope Sierra Leone would have achieved by then?
You know, I'd like to take this conversation to individuals. And yesterday I was invited by a church to give a talk for International Women's Day. Whilst we applaud what the government has done in terms of policies, the legislations, creating institutions, it's still a struggle. But I think the conversation now is between us as individuals, and it starts from the home. How do you bring up your children? Because when you don't bring up that man for make you feel say he get authority over your own sister, where something is small. Now make way go na workplace, any workplace where they look down on women. For even we where they drive, I'm sure you've experienced this. Now man.
Yeah.
My mother, if she was alive, she would have been 96. My mother started driving in Sierra Leone or either in England when she was in her 20s. So we are talking about something, Sierra Leonean women driving for the last 70 years. Yet where they drive, in fact, you drive somewhere, you see even boys. Now man, boy. It's the orientation. So that's where it starts. So it's a call to action, because they talk about what should be the action. How do we create that orientation for we boys and we girls? Say we live in an era now where women can do anything and everything. We are already doing everything. Now we can do anything. And you need to give us that space. You need for recognize we, you need for encourage we. Let fathers be that good role model for their daughters. Because the papa, now the first man where that girl picking the see. And every man where he meets, including the man where he go married in partner, now in the image of his daddy. So if you've created a bad image, you need to encourage your girls. You need for respect them. You need for show them love. You need for also respect your wife or your partner where you deal with. Because I see you, they relate to a mama. Now so they understand, say, now so man for relate to them. So if you they show respect to a mama, then you they give that time, that love. You are grooming up a woman. We get self-confidence, we get a lot of self-esteem, and the sky will be the limit. So that's the call to action. That's by next year, where will they get this conversation? It's not looking at even policies or legislations of government, but it's about asking the men and asking the women, what thing you don't do within your sphere of influence for make sure, say, the women around you, they could be your blood female, they could be friends, they could be in your neighborhood, they could be in your office, in your school, in wherever you do your environment. What have you done to support them? What have you done to ensure that their dreams and aspiration has been achieved?
All right, thank you very much. She's Valnoa Edwin, a good governance campaigner, and of course, thank you very much, Mayama Navo, founder, Every Woman Sierra Leone, and director of a National Anti-Corruption Strategy Secretariat at the Anti-Corruption Commission. They've been my guest this morning. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll have the Minister of Information and also, you know, another campaigner, a he for she. You know, it's all exclusive this morning. But let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
In the heart of Sierra Leone's dynamic rhythm, Wakeup Commercial Bank is your beat to a brighter financial future. We are not just a bank, we're a financial partner committed to your success. We've got the financial tools you need to rise higher. Our team is here to serve you with speed and a smile because your time matters to us. So, are you ready to unlock financial prosperity? Highlighting key banking services such as Keke loans, Combra account, fixed deposits, SME loans, internet and corporate banking, from savings that grow your dreams to loans that fuel your ambitions. Demonstrating fast and friendly customer service. Showcasing cutting-edge banking technology and ATMs. Access your money anytime, anywhere with our state-of-the-art technology and a network of ATMs. Our Wakeup SimCopper app puts banking in your hands, where you can pay for EDSA, AfriMoney, Orange Money, and pay bills including school fees and make transfers to other bank accounts. Remember, you can also experience Wakeup e-banking today. Then join us now. Visit any of our branches or explore our website. Wakeup Commercial Bank, your bank of choice.
Feels good to see your face again. It's been a very crazy day. The joyous feeling in the air when rain falls on a sunny day. Happy, yeah. Let the stars, let the roll.
Enjoy life's little pleasures with Maltina. Maltina. Share happiness.
Welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television and radio. Don't forget to send in your comments and your question to our AYV News Facebook page. Now in our final segment, we're going to discuss, more on women's issue here this morning on AYV. We've been joined by feminist, Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chegnoba. The minister is here to talk about the importance of the International Women's Day and also the increment of the fuel pump price from 28.50 to 32 leones, amongst other things. Mr. Ba, good morning and welcome to AYV.
Good morning, my brother. Happy International Women's Day to the people of Sierra Leone.
Mr. Minister, we've marked the day yesterday and the celebration is continuing today. From government's perspective, what progress has Sierra Leone made in advancing women's rights over the past years?
Well, I think the president gave a beautiful address yesterday. I think International Women's Day is a day to take stock, to remind ourselves of the many ways in which women, as they say, hold up more than half the sky. And oftentimes in ways that are unrecognized, and diminished. But the world decided that we must dedicate that particular day to not just remind ourselves of the incredible contribution of women, but to celebrate that contribution and to resolve to doing more we can to create a more equal and a just society. I think under the leadership of President Bill, we have seen, I think this is not a controversial statement, the most advancement on women's rights in Sierra Leone ever has happened in this 7-8 years since President Bill has been in power. We've seen legislations upon legislations, the most progressive legislations when it comes to women's rights, whether it's the Jury Act, which is the landmark one, but also the Sexual Offences Act, but also other land rights reforms and things like that are critical to women's economic empowerment and women's advancements. That's happened under President Bill. We've seen women being appointed to top positions. We've seen the percentage of women in our parliament double, almost percentage of women in our cabinets significantly increase. We've seen that the body politic in terms of the representation of women in our country, I think significantly shift. But we've banned child marriage in Sierra Leone, for example. We've been seen as examples. Our First Lady was just on CNN, being heralded for the boldness of the leadership of President Bill in advancing women's rights. But I think on a day like today and yesterday, it also should remind us of how far yet we must go. We still have very serious issues confronting women's rights in this country. I, for example, believe that the Safe Motherhood Act should be law in this country by now because it continues to advance women's rights. Cabinet had approved it, Parliament has refused. I believe that we should expressly ban female genital mutilation and cutting in our laws. Parliament decided not to do that. I believe there are other major reforms that we must continue to see, especially, for example, in terms of the 30% quota for political parties. I believe that that should be implemented in a very different way. I believe that even if you're going to have one of three be women, I think the women's name should always be either number 1 or number 2 on the list so that it enhances women's participation. I believe there are more things we can do to signal to our girls and our women. But I think even as we make those commitments, President Bill mentioned, for example, on the Armed Forces Day, that we have significantly increased the number of women that serve in combat or in our armed forces, but we're still very, very far from the threshold that we have set, which should be the base. 30% should be the base. We should continue to add from that. But I think irrespective of all of that, nobody will question that the most transformational figure in advancing women's rights as our leadership in this country has been President Julius Maada Bio, and he deserves his flowers. The government of Sierra Leone right now, and Parliament as well, because some of those reforms were also enacted by Parliament. So we're not where we need to be, but we're headed in the right direction on women's rights and empowerment.
Mr. Minister, many people say, and I rightly also believe in that, we have strong, gender laws, since 2007 and since, even in fact, after 2018, from the amendment of the Sexual Offences Act in 2019, we've had progressive laws, even on land issues, economic empowerment of women. Yeah. We now have the Early Child Marriage Act. You mentioned 2 acts that, or issues, with the Safe Motherhood Bill. It was tabled first, even before SLP came to power. There were religious cry around it again. It happened under this tenure. And of course, the exclusion of the clause that has to do with FGM. It's a beautiful thing that we have, the different arms of government working. The executive would want, an improvement in the lives of women and girls, but the legislation will say a hold on it first. People haven't consented yet. That's a beautiful thing, but also it's concerning if the political backing is there from the executive, but we keep having, bottlenecks when these laws go to Parliament.
I think that this is a product of the democratic process. Democracy can be messy, but democracy decentralizes the power. You don't want to see a scenario where the executive decides that they should be the law of the land, which we make a proposal, and the people's representative don't have an opportunity to input. I always say to my friends in the feminist movement, it is our job as well to bring the public along, to put the pressures that we must put, to respect the religious leaders. They are citizens too, and they have a right to their own opinion in the democratic process. And through that process, I think we can continue to have different outcomes. I think we can continue to produce positive and progressive outcomes. Sometimes you'll have setbacks, but that's how all change has been. I don't take a very dim view on it. I'm disappointed. I would like to see those changes happen, but I would rather live in a democracy where everybody has a chance to air out their view. What I think is the problem is that sometimes the views that are being aired resort to outrageous name-calling and demonization because we disagree. Some of us were subjected to a lot of negative things because we had a different point of view. Our point of view, I should say, is backed by science, by data. It will advance this country. We believe we're right. And we said also, including to the folks in our respective religions that disagreed with us, that our religions are religions of truth. The truth is that these laws will save women's lives, will advance peace, security, and the health care of the women of our country. So that's where we stand. But I always am for a good debate, and I'm for democratic processes, and sometimes you lose, or you have a setback, because I think that's what has happened with these two laws. But we're not going to relent. I can assure everybody that's paying attention to this that we will do everything we can, mark my words, to ensure that those two laws become the law of the land, because they're the right thing to do, and we're not going to relent.
Now, when we speak of women's empowerment, you know, the conversation always shifts to political representation, whether by default or because for a very long time women haven't been visible in the political space. You know, when we talk of 30% representation, it was always in politics. You know, have 30% of women in council, members of parliament, in ministerial appointments and positions, you know, of MDAs. But there's also the issue of, you know, economic, you know, equality and representation. If we weigh now, you know, the amount of men who are economically well off, you can't compare it to women. So there's always the issue around also empowering women to be economically viable. What has been government's position in that regard?
I think you're absolutely right. The foundation of true empowerment is the economy. It's access to economic opportunities. And there are different things that create the leveler on the economy. One of them is education. If there's an imbalance between educational outcomes, you will expect necessarily that there's an imbalance as well in economic opportunities. So when President Bio came to power, only 1 in 10 girls who start school were expected to complete high school. That has changed significantly. He has achieved gender parity. He's making sure that more and more girls go to school. He's giving an unprecedented number of scholarships, for example, to girls who study STEM. He's trying to equalize it, because the problem was too many girls and women dropped out of school. That's a big point of how you shift on the economic front. If you do not equalize on the education, you don't equalize on the outcomes. The second part is the GWE Act. One of the things that is mostly unknown about it is it actually addresses a lot of economic empowerment issues. It creates rules for equal pay for equal work, for example. It also protects women in the workspace. It says, you know, demands for maternity leave, paid time off, childcare, and all of those things are within that GWE Act. A brilliant legislation. The New Child Rights Act, despite its limitation on not passing, for example, the FGM provision, it has a lot of other progressive provisions as well that allow for us to begin to move towards this economic empowerment and economic equity or equality, which is what we seek. But I don't want to dismiss quotas. Quotas are important. You create a standard and say we want 30% because we're starting from such a low base, and we need to create an imposition on the system so you can start to normalize. A girl who's growing up, if they have not seen any woman in leadership position, it's going to be difficult for them to even dream and imagine that and work hard towards being in that position because they're limited. You talk to a girl in a school that doesn't have a female teacher, doesn't believe that she will grow up and become a female teacher in that school. Even if she wants to, in her mind, she just sees all the limitations and be like, there's nobody like me that's in that position. So quotas help us to create a new normalcy, and the people that are in that 30% then open the doors for others to come through. So I understand why there's a focus first on the quotas, but it is not the end. It is a step for us to get to the point where we'll not even require a quota anymore, where the norm will be that, look, if the law of averages is true and we have 51% of women in our country, it should also be the case that overall, all other conditions being held constant, we should have about 51% of women accessing different opportunities in our country, whether it's in politics, in the banks, in the financial sector, etc. But we know that's not the case right now, exactly because of the structural disadvantages that continue to hold our women back. And those are the disadvantages that President Bio's laws and actions are trying to get rid of.
What is this government doing specifically to support, women in the informal economy, especially market women and small traders?
In fact, I think this is one of the biggest unspoken wins of His Excellency. NASIT, the National Social Security and Insurance Trust, is introducing a new informal scheme. This scheme has the potential to be 5 times the size of the NASIT scheme, which everybody praises as one of the best things that's happened under the SLPP-led government of President Tijan Kaba. Now, the NASIT leadership, Mr. Dabo, and the rest of the board and the rest of the team, and we happen to sit on the steering committee, has been working on an innovative, transformational informal scheme that will support the too many women who are in the informal sector to have a safety net, to be able to have access to safety so that, when there's challenges and things like that, they'll have that support. The NASIT's informal scheme, I think, is one of the biggest things that will happen to support women as well in the country. The second thing I want to reference is what as well we're doing in the agriculture sector, providing insurance for women who are in the agriculture sector, who in the past were not able to have access to, for example, insurance scheme, safety nets, but also access to capital, which is something I know the Minister of Agriculture has been working on. So President Bio understands that, he was raised by people in his family who were mostly as well in the informal sector. He understands that if you want to kickstart this economy, if you want to really push it into where he wants to get to, if you want to create an equal society for men and women, you'll have to make a lot of investments in the informal sector. And that's where we're building not just NACSA, NASIT, Ministry of Agriculture, a lot of schemes that are targeted at bringing those in the informal sector somehow into the formal sector, while keeping them doing what they're doing, but making sure that they have access to tools and facilities that can support them and cushion them against shocks, which are inevitable when you're operating in that sector.
Now, this government in 2019, amended the Sexual Offences Act, and, we've seen improvements in how the judiciary has handled, cases that have been brought before it on allegations of sexual penetration, rape, and the like. But, despite the national emergency, the declaration on sexual violence, the laws, the amendment, many survivors, still struggle. And we have instances wherein, families of victims do compromise with the families of perpetrators. And most of these cases do not reach even the police. Are there mechanisms to ensure that every allegation or every case of rape or sexual penetration or gender-based violence on a woman is reported and captured within the general data?
I think it's really important, and this is something that I worked on for many years, to understand that to tackle a problem that is so deeply entrenched in our societal norms, you don't just require laws, you require all of society. Government's work is limited. There's so much governments can do. We can create a one-stop center for you to go report. We can strengthen the family support units and create a specialized units that can ensure that prosecutions are done. You can create a specialized court, which we have done. We can ensure that survivors are believed and that you have the means of prosecuting and expediting the process. But almost every sexual violence happens with somebody you know. Some data tells us about 90% of sexual violence, especially for people who are below the age of 18, it happens to an adult that they know. So now their uncle, now their neighbor, now somebody, the person they go church to, the mosque, somebody, you know, it's somebody that's involved in their lives. And because of the intimate and intricate ways our societies work, immediately the instinct is going to be, let's settle this out of court. Because there's also the risk of what happens to that girl's lives when it's played out, you know, what happens to opportunities later in life, marriage and all of that. This is a product of a deeply entrenched patriarchal oppressive system that almost always disadvantages the women. So the way you change that, you require all of society. Social norms need to change. And that's why, for example, in my old job, what we were trying to work on is to build a movement and tackle social norms. Because it's not just laws. Even if you pass the laws and say if they don't report. Now, the laws were so strong, we criminalized out-of-court settlement. But now you're going to need somebody to prove that you actually settled out of court. Mm-hmm. So if the people in our society are not willing to come forward, do not see it yet as a huge problem, you're going to have a lot of issues. And keep in mind, the law criminalized all sex below the age of 18. Everybody in my grandmother's generation was married at age 12, 13. Too many girls in our country are still married or having sexual relations below the age of 18. So there is also a challenge there with what people consider, oh, na pikin, not to pikin, and things like that. Oh, this person for go jail for that. Oh, nothing say this person for go 10 years for that and all of that. So you require a societal norm shift. And I think the laws are important, but ultimately how you report it, ultimately how we bring societies along, ultimately how girls are empowered to understand and see that, no, this is something that is against the law. They have the power to be able to go to court. They know that they can be believed. And they know that also it's not just that girls can be believed, but that what are the alternatives that the girls have when they come forward. Because immediately they go report to me uncle, then they can arrest me uncle. Now my uncle, now they pay for me aunt, now they pay for my sister, now they pay for my brother as well for go school, now they pay for me. Now you don't go arrest me uncle. Then go lock in a jail for 20 years. Then I don't have economic opportunities. What happens to me? What happens to my sister? So there's a unfortunate complexity around the issue of sexual violence that is entrenched in our society that the laws can handle some of, but the rest of it requires all of us as a society to be part of that process to tackle this.
In terms of the judiciary, you know, is government satisfied with how the justice system handles gender-based violence cases?
Look, we're never going to be satisfied until we know that, first of all, that no girl is subjected to any form of sexual violence and that 100% of cases get a positive outcome. But we also have to understand that justice is not just, you know, they say, you know, they set law at one. We should not just want the sword of Damocles to land on everybody just because they are accused. In our justice system, we also believe in the presumption of innocence. Just because you're accused doesn't mean that you're guilty. And the justice system has what is called due process to allow us to be able to prove and to ensure that, you know, you don't feel like you live in a society where if they point and by the next day they go kill you. So justice can be slow. Sometimes it can be frustrating. But I think what we need to do is to build on the efficiencies, make sure the things that we can control, we control them, that we don't have undue delays, we don't have undue frustrations, and as you said, out-of-court settlements and things like that. We're not satisfied. There's so much more we can do. But I think anybody that's paying attention to this will tell you that we're not where we used to be. We've come a long way in terms of both the numbers, in terms of prosecution, in terms of the commitment of the states to these kinds of issues, and we'll continue to move in the right direction.
All right, Mr. Minister, let's go over to the other issue, the fuel issue. Fuel pump price has increased from 28.50 to 32 leones. And many Sierra Leoneans are worried about the ripple effect on transport fare, food prices, and so many more. And right now, you you say you want something, someone will tell you it don't go up because transport don't go up. You know, why was this increase necessary in the first place?
Thank you. I really wanted to come here today to talk about fuel because I want the people of this country to understand what we're facing. We're facing unprecedented times. There are major producers of oil in the country. We don't produce oil, which is what we convert and what becomes fuel. Sierra Leone does not. Every oil, every fuel, petrol, we import into the country, and we import from some major markets. The major markets in the world in the past included Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran. So some of the biggest producers of fuel. All of those three countries I've called are currently enmeshed in some very particular challenging times. One particular one, Iran, is currently in the middle of a crisis, a conflict in the Gulf region. And it's not just Iran. Iran's neighbors also produce fuel. And a good number of that fuel passes through a place that's called the Straits of Hormuz. It's like a route. I was listening to an analysis yesterday that said on a daily basis you expect 80 to 90 tankers to go through that straits, which serves about 1/5 of the world. In the past 2 days, they've had a maximum of maybe 1 or 2 per day. It's a significant challenge. So the first challenge we have is that we risk running out of fuel for buy. Not to foresee how the price will, even for a day for a buy. Countries like South Korea have had significant challenges. In fact, at some point I just read, they had to pause their market because the market was in a free fall because of the fuel situation. Countries in Europe have seen significant increases in the price of fuel. In some parts of Europe, by the way, I have had reports that there's been shortages, including queues for fuel. In Europe, over the weekend, at some point there had been a 50% increase. In some places, even way higher than that. In South Africa and in Eastern Africa, availability of fuel is becoming a challenge because they cannot even find the fuel to buy. Here in Sierra Leone, let's take our sub-region. Almost everybody else has increased their fuel prices because of the conflict in the Gulf. Now, on Friday, when I checked the global markets, it was about 90. This morning when I woke up, it was about 110. As we speak, fuel prices will be going up. Why? Because of uncertainty, because of the conflict, because it's not just Iran, which is a major producer, but Bahrain, the other countries around it, are also being hit and they are not producing. Saudi cannot transport the oil that they're producing. I'm giving this context because I want the people of Sierra Leone to understand that we are facing a very difficult and a challenging times. So what do we do as a government? We have 2 major priorities. One, we want to make sure that no matter what happens, fuel is available. And for that to happen, the oil companies here have to have the purchasing power. Someone say, oh, they don't already get, why they not sell at that old price? If you sell at the old price, you don't even get the money for buy again, because the point of selling is so you can buy. But also, people don't understand the way the fuel market works. The fuel companies order the fuel. They deliver into their tanks here, but they have not paid for it. It's not theirs. It still belongs to the supplier. When you take out, you pay at the day rate, because that's how the supplier sells. So already, when we do the maths, and we have a fuel formula, I can assure you that the rate we agreed on last Thursday was already subsidized. A lot of people say, oh, government not the subsidized. I want to be clear. The rate we agreed on last Thursday was already subsidized, and basically it's not the real rate because it should be much higher than that if we just had the exact complete pass-through, especially when you combine the products, petrol and diesel. Diesel in the markets today is much higher. We're trying to keep it stable. We've kept the rates at the same. We've pleaded with the oil importers and say, please, our economy cannot absorb this kind of major shock because of what you say, the implications on other things. So that's something we have to continue to manage. The second thing is the price. We want to make sure it's available, but we also want to make sure that the price is reasonable enough for the people of our country. And on that, we have committed that on a weekly basis, we're going to sit down with the oil importers. We're going to assess what is happening in the markets. what the Platts price is, what the implications are in terms of the ability to be able to get supplies, the ability to be able to now move those supplies in and distribute across the country. So the 32 is a compromise that was made. There was some estimate that said the actual price should be well over 35, 36, 39 and all that. But you have a government that's sitting down with them and pleading with them and say, let's do this for now and let's continue to observe. I was reading in the New York Times yesterday, and it's suggesting that if this Strait of Hormuz crisis continues, we could see the worst global crisis as it pertains to fuel that we have seen in probably 50 years in the world. It could be a huge issue. It's only been 1 week plus of this crisis, and we're already seeing shortages, as I've said, crisis in economies that are much more sophisticated than ours. I'm referring to the Asian markets, to Korea, to even Southern and Eastern Africa. We've seen shortages, we've seen spikes in prices, we've seen significant increases. We're trying to manage the situation in Sierra Leone, but I'm here to say to the people of this country, there's so much we can do. Some of this we don't have control over, because it pertains to what's happening in the global market. What happened in places where we import from, what's happened in the routes that come here. So I want people to understand and to appreciate that we're managing a delicate situation, and that we will continue to observe. At the end of this week, we're also going to sit down. If the prices continue to go up as they are now, unfortunately, we will have to increase our prices as well. Because if we don't, we will not be able to compete to buy. Because of the shortages in supplies, the demand has gone up for fuel in other markets. So instead of them can sell to, we then will go sell outside and also people then get purchasing power and they want to buy. And we don't want for there, we will not get fuel at all. We want to make sure, say, this country will continue to get fuel. We will go for keep the economy going, because fuel, they affect all Tinaya and all. So government, they do as much as we can for subsidize. We already subsidize fuel. A lot of people they mislead that. We already do that. We already subsidize. We already support a formula system where they keep the price as low as possible. Right now, if we do the exact pass-through, the price is supposed to be much higher than outside this so today. Now, government don't intervene for keep the price outside this so right now. If you look at other neighboring countries, check Ghana, check Guinea, prices are just going up, and most of them countries I don't call so, they're higher than ours. We're trying to maintain ours, because we have done a lot of good things to stabilize our economy. And we understand that fuel price, our exchange rates, all those things are critical for the stability of our country and the stability of our economy. But people for no say, we're in a crisis, and that crisis we have very little control over, and it could lead to more and more increases in the days and weeks ahead. We pray we don't get to that. We pray this issue is resolved. We pray that the international partners see some reason and they calm down. But if this crisis continues, it will affect our fuel situation in Sierra Leone.
Mr. Minister, on the backhand of last year, we had fuel reduced to as low as 25 leones.
Correct.
And then early this year, we saw an increment.
Yeah.
So the concern is, what necessitated that increment early this January?
Yeah.
Some people or Sierra Leoneans can understand this present predicament, but what necessitated us moving from 25 leones to 28.50 early this year?
I think it's a good question, and I like that. People, you have to think about it this way. We have a formula, and that formula takes into consideration different things. The way I like people to understand about government, I always say government are like your home. Yeah? You do get money, you need money. So some man they say, let we subsidize. What's how they get the money for subsidize? Some man they say, government for build school here. What's how they get the money for build the school? Government need for raise revenue. So at the end of every month, and only under this government, who don't see price they go down, and they go up because we have a formula, and the formula say if the global market something happen and the price go up, and that up they be reflected in our markets now. If it go down, like right now, so this fuel crisis will happen. So if the price go down, they go down back now salon. So what's happen at the end of every year, we also get a finance act where they impose certain taxes, where they get the price of the global market, we able for so that we will show up we own revenue, we government need the revenue again for pay the Peking school fee, for let pay us rent, for let pay lights bill. All of those things what we use to help manage the economy and run the government. So but even at the 28 with some people they talk, we were still less in terms of fuel price than a number of we West African neighboring countries. Compare again to Guinea, compare to Ghana, we were still less than the country than they. So we also get some obligations on waiting for the baseline that we collect from who they sell fuel, who they sell different things. But I want to let family understand, say, any government not they waking up money and say, oh, one go is price. Government not there into fuel because they only make profits when the price go up. We want to let the price they down because it's good for we. We want for win elections. We want to let all the price they go down. So if governments sit down and say let the price go up, people for understand that not because we don't take into consideration them factors and we know say right now we take the global rate, we take the other factors and we transparently they inside that formula where we publish for the first time in the history of this country. Then don't lead me to USA with it. And now going forward, again, if the crisis continue, if the price go up, we're going to forget the ability for people for buy. The fuel company and for make some profits as well. The country get for collect taxes. All of those things are part of it for keep the economy going. That's what they measure. That's what they determine prices.
You've just spoken about, the prices as compared to other West African nations. Rightly so, we were doing better. But because of this increment now, we are not doing better than countries like Ghana, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and even Liberia. Liberia has a cheaper fuel rate as compared to us now. And you're saying if this conflict continues, and if the access to fuel is a problem, we might see another increment. Now, the daily lives of Sierra Leoneans are also an issue here, even with government subsidizing fuel. But this will mean a change in prices for transportation, a change in prices for food commodities, and government has labeled this year as a year of action. Was this the action you intended?
Definitely, it's not the government of Sierra Leone that's attacked or that is involved in the conflict in the Gulf region. Action is what we can control, and that is something that we're doing. So we are focused on the action of the government of Sierra Leone here, but we live in a global economy, and obviously we didn't anticipate that there's going to be conflicts. By the way, I can tell you that fuel in Ghana is more expensive than fuel in Sierra Leone. I can tell you that fuel in many of the countries you mentioned. Liberia, yes. Overall, Liberia has always been slightly lower than us because they have different subsidies that we don't have. And again, the cost of transporting fuel, all of these other variables that we take into consideration are different. But price in Guinea, which is a bigger economy than ours, is also more expensive than us. So we're actually very competitive. We're bang in the middle in the average of what West Africa sells. So I think it's important that the people of this country understand that the reason I'm talking about for people to understand that we're in a global crisis and that crisis will have implications for us is to prepare people and to be transparent with the people of this country. There are certain things we cannot control. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. This fuel is not running through. Supplies are going in low. Saudi Arabia has said that they are going to stop extracting oil because they cannot transport it. If that happens, I've also already mentioned Venezuela, which was a major producer. It has its own problem. It's going to affect us. When two elephants fight, now the grass then they suffer. Unfortunately, in this case, we happen to belong to the one that we did at the grass inside. The things we can do as part of the year of action to cushion the effect of this are things that we're doing. I've just mentioned our formula. I've just mentioned hours and hours of meetings and pleas with the oil importers and different regulations that we're putting in place. to cushion the effect on our people, these are things that we can do. What have we done? When you talk about year of action, we used to have only 2 or maximum 3 people that imported oil into the country. Today, we have up to 10. We have liberalized the fuel space in the country. We have increased significantly. Why you see some countries having queues now, we don't have queues? Because we have significantly increased our ability to get storage in this country. We have expanded this. That's what we can control. That's what the year of action means. That's what President Bill means. Those are things we can control. But there are absolutely certain things that are way out of our sphere of control. And that includes the global price and the global availability as a result of these kinds of sporadic, unexpected crisis that we're seeing in the Gulf region.
Now, 2 comments here. Swissman is saying, Mr. Minister, was there no fear in the country before the war in Iran, or people are increasing price at any time they want because of the incompetence of government to control prices in the country? And Mohammed Suleiman Kuroma is saying, according to the government, we have a storage facility for 3 months. Why are you selling the old stock fuel expensive when you should have sold it at a cheaper price you bought it?
So I will say to the first person that asked the question that I think they are on to a good question, but when you start conversation with the incompetence of the government, it doesn't help you. It's not a civic way to conduct yourself when you're in public. You have a very capable government, and the formula is transparent. It's public. Now, a lot of people don't understand the way the fuel market works. As I've said, if you're not ordinary, if you're not businessman, you buy this water, you sell. You get 2 stock of water, but when you do water done, you need for buy again. If you been buy this water 1 Leone, but you don't hear it right now, so you know say this water now at 3 Leone and you can sell at the market. If you don't for sell this at 1 Leone, you say, oh, now 1 Leone because you been there now 1 Leone I don't buy, now 1 Leone nobody buy. You don't get where this money, where you don't done, you don't get forget the ability for buy again na the market. So that's number 1. This is not just, even if the theory is true, which is not true, I want to understand that. The way the fuel market works, the companies there elect the stock in the country, not so they get her. The post where they buy it to, sir, then get the big company them, then call them Trafigura, the other one in name there, I don't forget, and then you buy it to. Then they can supply and you store it, you keep it at the storage. So one, you goal na for just available, and most time na loan, then they take credit lines and get through the bank same and all that, then take that what they call. Then the fuel they inside you own storage. When you ready for take that fuel they from your storage for good distribute to you, you come today, you can pay for the day for at the market price for today. Now that market price you they pay for. Then you go. When you don't done, when you sell, you come back, you want to take more. The market price today, then they charge you. A lot of people think say, oh, they don't go buy the fuel, not also the fuel market they work. You know they go buy a car or save an aya now, if they don't fuel they work so. Then they can't supply you based on the relationship owner gets and the agreement owner gets. Any pull way they pull them now the market price because they know say a particularly volatile market price. So if the theory is true that we been get would already pay for our therefore sell and cheap, it don't make sense economically. Because you know they go sell there, you know for you buy it tomorrow. That's number 1. But it's not true. So the fuel we did na storage. Na the company the way they supply, na then get them. Then just they put them in your storage so that you could get easy access for buy. And when you buy at the market rate for today. So waiting people need for understand that we need for let them supply and they continue for believe say salon a place so them for can supply let not run out completely. And where then come that we get the ability for buy. And for let we get the ability for buy, we need for sell at the market rates. Now, if we decide for begin argue with them, say, oh well, we been come, the market not been this one, and they go sell other side. And when they go sell other side, we get a much bigger crisis if fuel not there. I mean, government, if you watch your press release, will say we focus on availability. First, let us not become like other countries we fuel not there at all. And then secondly, how they manage the price. So yes, my brother, you get a very competent government. When you look at the fact, when you look at just speculation, not so social media crisis, this is a real crisis where you get top people in the world with the help within our government, where they manage.
Are we just buying our fuel from the Gulf region, or do we have other suppliers we are not looking out to as well?
Yeah.
I mean, those who are handling, or the traders or buyers who are buying fuel from the Gulf region, shouldn't they start looking at other alternatives?
But I'm telling you, the other alternatives, we are all in the same global market. So even if you don't buy from the Gulf region, as I say, now there is competition. The very supply we get now, England back they want her. The other they want her in a market, a global market.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask about Nigeria. The Dangote refinery is now working. I know they are selling most of their fuel to America.
Correct. But would they buy from there as well? Mm-hmm. But the point is, even Switzerland and other places, even if you buy from the one and the one there is global, there is the global price, and that global price they go up because of scarcity, because the markets all now one, right? So China get for buy steel anyway. South Korea get for buy steel. If you're not able to buy from the Gulf, they then they buy exclusive. Not able to buy from the Gulf. What's in the happen? Then the African buy in Nigeria. And what's in that they mean say Nigeria they realize say demand don't go up. The basic law of economics: if demand go up, supply don't less, the price they go up. So what's in the happen? It affect even we're not concerned. Or say we not be buy from the Gulf region, but we they buy from all over based on the availability and the different players they will get now. And so whenever there's any pressure on the market, it affects all man, irrespective of who side they primarily buy. Except, for example, if we not be Nigeria, where they produce our own fuel, we supply to ourselves. We not get that privilege right now. We not to that kind of market today. Even the US, when a major producer of oil, their own price they don't go up because of the overall market. When again supply become less, demand go up, pressure on the demand, price they go up everywhere.
Also, Us friend Kama is asking or saying that in order for government to prevent unprecedented external shocks from hitting hard on the economic system and markets like we have now with this fuel, government must have self-imposed fiscal rules by creating a fiscal headroom or budgetary or leeway to create a safety buffer against economic shocks. So you've just mentioned subsidy as one. But even at that, it's also concerning that you stated that if it continues to go up in the world market, government will have no choice but to also, raise the price up. Apart from subsidy, is there no other buffer? Isn't government looking at, tax deduction or anything for ensure, at the end of the day, it will be temporal, but to ensure that even if in the world market, prices go up to the point that we sell for it up. But because government is concerned, about the citizen, and make no mistake, the issue of fuel and rice has taken government out of office. And we're barely 2 years or so into the next elections. If the Iran-US-Israel conflict continues for the next 5 or 10 months, it virtually means we would have concern with fuel for the next 5 or 10 months, or 1 year as the case may be. And it will be a concern for this administration. Isn't there any other cushion apart from the subsidy to ensure that even if this conflict doesn't go away now, but will maintain the balance and ensure that citizens enjoy?
We have a sound economic management team that managed multiple global crises in the past. We had the global crisis that shot our inflation to 55. We've managed to bring it to 4-point-something%, and I think this month it's gone up again because of this global crisis that you're seeing, but also just modestly. We have a sound economic management team that's led by His Excellency the President, our finance minister, our bank governor, our financial secretary, and the rest of our team. They're looking at all the options that are available to us. And as I said, when you're managing the fundamentals of the economy, you don't just look at one side. You have to look at the rest of it. Our exchange rate continues to be stable. It's one of the most stable things that we have done. So that's something that we're doing to ensure that we're continuing to be competitive, right? You look at other aspects of our economy being managed as well as we can based on the variables that are within our control. All I was saying is that the variable of the price of the global market of fuel is not one that we can control. And if it continues to go up, it will affect the fuel price in Sierra Leone. That's just the reality. There's very little that we can do on that. What we can do, we're already doing. subsidizing, managing, thinking about, removing tax. When people say, suspend or remove tax, I want, again, tax. It's like your home. If you say, let pull the tax, therefore let not pay salaries, you think say any government will survive that? Because the tax is the money that we make that allows us to pay teachers and health workers and pay people, we go for go work. Now we will use for pay school subsidies.
But Mr. Misa, so if you're paying all that and then the ordinary man, they use the money per fuel or per transport.
But it's important that make us like you home. You have to. People think government is just like, collect money. No, government doesn't collect money for other things. In fact, the government of Sierra Leone, the money we collect mostly is basically to just manage the economy. So, where they say, pull all the tax. If you pull all the tax, then let's say now the fuel price remain the same. But when months done, you not pay salary. What do you think is going to happen? When months done, you know pay the subsidies we're supposed to pay. When months done, health worker they not get paid. You deal with more crises. So I just want to let everybody, I just want to animate the situation so people will understand that it's a complex issue. It's not as straightforward black and white jacket like how some our lady. Let them just pull all the tax someone out, then the fuel go down. Even if you pull the tax, because of the global crisis, you're still going to have effect on the price. So we have to manage all of that. And we are also in programs. We're in the IMF program. We have to manage what the implications for that. We need for increased revenue. People complain, revenue not increase. We need for continue for maintain our revenue levels. So we will attract the kind of budget support. We will help we follow move the economy forward. It's a complex game. We have a competent team that is managing it. I want to assure people that the competent team we have is managing this as well as we can, but I also just want for the family to know we're in the middle of a global crisis. We have limited control over that crisis. The effect of that could be that we'll continue to see revisions in the price of fuel in the short to medium term until we see what happens with this crisis.
There have been talks that we also possess some level or amount of oil. I see smile when I ask, but that, whether it's a rumor or true, let's have that discussion now. Is it high time we started thinking about, looking viably into seeing whether that's practicable? Because if we are the masses of, economies around the world or global incidents to every extent, even if Corona happened, even if we're not affected to a large extent, our economy is affected. Should we start looking at, ensuring that those resources we have in country, we start utilizing and making use of them? I know we've talked about the fact that we have an amount or deposit of oil. Should we start going into thinking about that actively?
The short answer to your question is yes, and we are already doing it. But I can tell you, my brother, that the process of moving from where we are to actually being able to produce, explore, remove, transform, sell, or even use that oil is a long, long process. But it's a process that's already started. The government of President Julius Maada Bio is definitely fully committed to that. It requires a lot of capital investment. We've been in very serious conversations, looking at what the possibilities, whether we have economic quantity, and I think that there's been some studies now that are suggesting that we do have, but then the process of that exploration and all the way to removing and all that's a complex process that I know is not going to be the answer to today's problem. But you're right. If, inshallah, God helps us, it could be the answer to the problems that we face in the future. And that's something that we will continue to explore.
Ibrahim Ba is asking, he says, my question is, most of us understand the current situation, but can you assure us that after all these challenges, fuel prices will return to normal? In Sierra Leone, whenever fuel prices increase, it's rare for them to decrease again. Why is that?
So I want to say to Mr. Ba that actually it's under President Julius Maada Bio that we have seen when the prices go up because of external factors, they go up. When they come down, we bring them down. So let me be clear. At the end of this crisis, if and when the market stabilizes and the prices come down, I guarantee you that the prices will come back down to normal levels in Sierra Leone. That's a guarantee. That's why we have a formula, and that's why the formula is transparent. That's why we publish the details of that formula. Government know they make extra money because, crisis don't fuel price won't come back to $75, or $60 at the global plat level, and they will continue for make. No, the formula is set, and we will make sure say the price go back to the levels we reflective of within the inside the formula.
And lastly, from Eric Nabi, says, Mr. Minister, are we buying from the Gulf region or elsewhere? If yes, or indeed we are buying from the Gulf region, is it a must that we must buy from the Gulf region?
I think I see Usa the person they go with this question, but I don't answer already. It's not just Usa they buy. Now, like if you say make him buy rice na Guinea, but also be buy Yabas, because we get the Yabas problem. We na Salo be buy Yabas something at through Guinea. Then the global market for Yabas begin get problem. No, so we see onions challenge happen. What's happen? Whether they buy na Guinea or na Ivory Coast they buy, if Yabas shortage on in the world, it affect price all side. Now basic economics. Basic economics. When demand go up, supply don't reduce, price they go up. Simple. So whether we buy in a Gulf, and in this case, I believe say I don't know exactly all the side who they buy, but I know say we get multiple players there that they buy from different side. But the price they be affected. I make oil get global price. And that global price is one of the determinants and at the level of supply, level of production, and the other interaction. That global price, I can challenge everybody and they beg you, go online, educate yourself. Check what's the price been the last week, Monday, to what's it did today. Significant increase. Just Friday when me check, it don't go to 90. This morning, I'm 110, I see. So the price, they continue for go up significantly because of the uncertainty that Strait of Hormuz, Iran them production, Saudi Arabia them production, Bahrain them production, other countries them, the levels of production, and then the increase in demand. Panic don't set in some parts of the world. Europe don't get challenged. South Korea, they had to pause their markets. You know, the rest of Asia also they scramble now for see who say we go buy, how we go buy. If fair later then they offer more money for buy. What that they mean is it creates competition. So we want for keep a partner that we don't use for sale. So we say when I will still come, we will continue for pay at the market price. That's the only way we will go for staying at the market. We will continue for do what we can for keep the price stable. And make again we not get complete free market. If we make a complete free market, if not a government they regulate and say, hey, let meet first. We'll look at this before the price go up. From Friday, what they tell you so, the price for don't go back over the weekend. Because the price continues to go up in the global market. But we don't decide, we don't say to them, no, we don't do it on a daily basis. Today price go up, it will cause too much confusion in our economy. So we do it weekly by weekly basis. We'll sit down with them, we'll look at the market, we get to assess the markets and the realities, and then we'll make the adjustments as necessary.
But as we round off, now the increment in fuel will create a ripple effect on also other areas. And we'll start seeing increment in transportation, in food stock. Can government control those? If government can't control the wider global market of the fuel internally, those we can control, is government still capable, or does government still have hands on controlling, those ones?
Government will control what government can control.
And what are those that government can control?
So, for example, we get formula with transport, for example. We decide with the transport people. If fuel price go up, transport they go up because then say for make profits. They not go buy fuel and come, they ride all day, they don't make profits. So now they say the people of this country understand we are now living in a crisis. As a global crisis that's going to affect us. Fuel is such an important commodity. I make we introduce this formula and don't try for control 100% viewing again. So make sure say we not get line will be the happen scarcity the happen every December you must see line, they happen again because we don't increase, we don't control it to we will control. But as the price they go up for fuel, as the increments they go up, there will be some ripple effects on other goods in the market. I don't want to lie about that. Some of that we cannot control. What we can control, we think get formula, we will make sure say we stick to the formula. We make sure say nobody not abuse that formula there. Nobody not just decide say we the increase times 10 with the price, we don't manage them for increase and by this amount. So all that reflections, government, all arms of government active. They work through that, and they encourage with brothers and sisters in civil society, in the media, for help for explain to people. Because maybe they say the average Salomon is reasonable. If you explain the way I explain, so they will see the reality. They can Google, they can check for themselves. They know that the government actually care about them. When they go look for problem can impose on them. We're actually seeking the solution. and for help for let the country go before. But me as a public information person, I always believe say, wait you for do not for tell the people the truth and trust them with the truth, and that's what I'm doing here today.
Will government also look into the different prices in different parts of the country? I know you are aware of this. If we're selling now, the base price is 32, right?
Yes.
But if you go Kono or somewhere in Kailahun, close to the Liberia border, and you want to get fuel, they might tell you 35 or 40. Are you aware of that?
I don't want to deal with speculations. At the same time, government they set the price based on all these parameters, and we they enforce. If somebody they do so on any government issued petroleum facility, then get repercussion. We get a very powerful NPRA right now. The acts don't be strengthened. They can shut down stations, and they get different forms of enforcement, and they will continue to do that.
Right. And finally, as we round off, Mr. Minister, would you assure Sierra Leoneans that if the international scene is calm and fuel goes back to its normal prices, we will go back to our normal price?
100% assured that as soon as we begin to see the decline in the prices and the stabilization of the prices, all factors being held constant, they will be reflected in the formula that we have, and you will see the corresponding decrease in the prices in Sierra Leone.
All right, thank you very much. He's Chair Oba, the Minister of Information. This is where we end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV Television. And we want to say thanks to all those who sent in their comments to our Facebook page, AYV News. Apologies to those we can't take or weren't able to take. But of course, as always, we want to say thanks to our sponsor, Local Commercial Bank, and other advertisers for the program this morning. To our viewers and listeners from across the globe, we say thank you for joining us this morning here on AYV Channel 33, on Radio FM 11.7, and on DSTV Channel 399. So we'll meet again for another edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone tomorrow. I am Bokari Matia. Many thanks for watching and listening.
You're watching AYV